Welcome to the Irish Farmers Journal Weekly Podcast, brought to you by Ornua, the home of Irish dairy.
Hello, Patrick Donoghue here, news editor with the Irish Farmers Journal, and welcome to this week's podcast. As anger grows among the 8,000 farmers still waiting for their GLAS payments, Deputy News Editor Katrina Murphy met with Minister for Agriculture Michael Creed this week to find out what is causing the long delays.
So, Minister, thanks very much, first of all, for having us in the Farmers Journal. The big question, I suppose, is why are about 8,000 farmers still waiting for GLAS money 4.5 months after when they expected it?
Well, I mean, I'm acutely conscious that we're some way behind our own ambition and indeed our commitment under the Farmers' Charter to pay. And that's something that disappoints me, and I appreciate if you're a farmer waiting for your payment, that's not exactly what you want to hear. You want to know when you're going to be paid. We commenced payment on Christmas week. We pressed the pay button to pay everybody, and I think about 28,000 went out. 97 million, I think, went out on Christmas week. We've cleared an additional 8 million in payments since. We're just at approximately 30,000 of the 38,000 now. And we have to find out now, in eyeballing each application, why it is that this application didn't go through, and resolve the issues with it. They're very often, more often than not, in-house issues that need to be resolved. But we have to eyeball each individual case, and we're doing that. And I've been upstairs in the IT section. I've met with the staff there. I mean, they are working flat out to get these payments out. I know they're doing the same down in Johnstown Castle in terms of they're in the thing. So, I mean, there is an awful lot of work going on to try and get these out. And I apologise to farmers who are caught up in the delays. We are working flat out to get them paid. Can I say when they will all be paid? I can't specifically at this stage. But it's not a resource issue, neither administrative or IT resources. It's just a logistical issue of having to eyeball each application and deal with the issues that arise in each individual one.
Would it be fair to say it was unforeseen, though? I mean, to say that now it's a complex situation, you would have known that there was 30 individual measures.
Look, I mean,
when farmers applied, that's not new.
No, I mean, there is a mammoth undertaking here in terms of IT systems for payments, and though this is called comfort to anybody who's waiting, if you ask the Commission, and I invite you to do so without our say so or anything, anyway they'll confirm, I mean, we are ahead of any other member state, any of the 28, in terms of the drawdown of funding on the Rural Development Programme. I know farmers are frustrated now by the phone system, but I have actually, and I appreciate this may not be the message that a lot of farmers want to hear, but I have said to the staff here, look, put the head down and continue to work to clear the backlog.
So rather than answering the phone?
Yeah, because that's pulling the same staff away from actually processing the payments.
Have staff been pulled in from other areas into the processing of payments? Because we're hearing things like the online portal for the knowledge transfer, that the IT issues there are delayed because, or that online portal is being delayed because staff are being pulled into GLAS.
No, there is no pulling of staff. All the staff that are there have all the overtime they want. We're working might and main. There isn't a resource issue here.
Could there have been better planning?
Well, you see, until you press a pay button, a pay run, and we couldn't press that until we, had our systems and all our applications loaded. We couldn't do that until, we were ready, and then the issues emerged. And I think, in respect of what we're rolling out now, a new sheep scheme, are we likely to have the same issues? I hope not. We will try and learn from this experience. But when you roll out new schemes, as we are constantly doing, we're rolling out a sheep scheme presently. We will be rolling out locally led schemes in the area of Pearl Mussel, Hen Harrier in due course. They all bring their own unique set of IT challenges. I'm not an IT expert by any means. I might as well be looking into the boot of the car, But I did visit the 6th floor here, where there's a full floor of staff who are working assiduously and are acutely conscious. And I spoke with them. I was up there last Thursday and met with all of those staff. And they are acutely conscious of the work they're doing and how important that is to farmers who are waiting payment.
What would you say to a farmer who's had to sell silage to cover the cash flow gap that is there because he didn't get his GLAS payment. We've had a number of farmers come to us with, very real problems on farm with merchant debt that should have been paid, contractors who should have been paid, and in some cases silage stocks being sold.
Well, look, I appreciate cash flow management is a big issue, and in some respects these payments are important in that regard. But we are, to those farmers, I would say, look, we are working might and main. We have no vested interest whatever in holding on to farmers' payments. We are, as I said, working all the hours God has given us to try and resolve the issue.
And you have no idea when it will be?
No, I can't, and I don't want to make a bad situation worse by saying to somebody, look, you'll have it by the end of next week or 2 weeks' time.
Did the department approach the Commission about being able to pay the 85% to farmers without the checks and then take any clawback out of the 15%?
No.
Didn't
and
approach
it's
it?
not feasible.
It's not feasible.
It's not.
Was that not something that you told farmers you would do?
No, I never said that.
No, not at the protest?
No, never said that.
Okay.
And I think we have to move away from the politics of the EU being the bogeyman here. This is an issue that rests in-house. We have, in terms of payment obligations, we have audit obligations and making sure the systems are correct. I'm not going to get into the space of saying I would have paid, only the EU didn't let me. That harvest was reaped in the UK in terms of people who constantly blame the EU for everything, and then you had a Brexit referendum and the mess we're in as a consequence. This is our issue. We are working to resolve it.
And you mentioned there you're confident that this is a one-off issue with the first year of this.
Yeah, the analogy I'm drawing is if you take the new basic payment system, in the first year there were teething issues with that. Substantially this year that has been worked a lot better. Mm-hmm. And I would hope for this cohort and GLAS that once we iron out all these issues that it should be straightforward thereafter. Now, we are opening up GLAS to new applicants. 13,000 new applicants applied to join GLAS, and obviously we'll be anxious to ensure that it doesn't become an issue for them, but we'll need to work through these issues and see what lessons we can learn from it. As I said, in terms of the application, it's a complicated scheme. There are 30 different actions that are menu of actions that are open to farmers under GLAS. Superimpose that complexity on a basic. Your application has to correlate with your basic payment scheme application and the plots therein, actions on particular plots, and without being an IT expert, you can grasp the complexity of the processing of these applications and the cross checks that are required. So we're very anxious to try and ensure that we get payments out as quickly as possible. We're working through this cohort. And if there are lessons we can learn from this experience that can be applied to the 13,000 new applicants, we'll do so.
Look, thanks very much for taking the time. I appreciate it.
In truth, look, I know this is a big issue.
It is.
And I represent a rural constituency. I've been that representative who's been making the case for farmers previously. Now I happen to be in the hot seat here. I suppose that gives you kind of the benefit of seeing things from all sides. And I've been upstairs with the staff, and to be fair to them, they are working flat out and they know how important this is.
The Irish Farmers Journal Weekly Podcast.
The €150 million agri-loan scheme opened to much fanfare 2 weeks ago. But how useful is the scheme and how popular is it amongst farmers? I sat down with agribusiness editor Owen Lowry to get the answer to these questions and more. Owen, plenty of discussion and talk in recent weeks regarding the new loan. It was the big ticket item that IFA pushed for in the last budget, and also Minister Michael Creed, the Agriculture Minister, made a big deal about this when it was launched in the past few weeks. Firstly, what are farmers saying to you? What are the questions they're coming back to you with? And secondly, is it proving popular?
Okay, so firstly, I suppose it's very popular. What is it? It is a 150 million loan fund. Interest rates at 2.95%, which are significantly lower than what would be available. It is for working capital. The loan term is 1 to 6 years, depending on what you're trying to finance. It's a fixed interest rate, and you can borrow up to 150,000. There is no security required, which is a big step forward as well, and that would mean that farmers will be able to access these loans quite quickly.
So, I want to build a shed, and I haven't started building it, and I want to go build it. is this something that I can apply for, or is it to clear existing debts or to clear cash flow issues, or what is the purpose of the loan fund?
Okay, so the main purpose of the fund is as a working capital loan. So that's to fund the day-to-day running operation of the farm. However, there are anomalies within that. For example, for a farmer who would have built a shed in 2015 or 2016 out of funds that were in his current account, it is now possible to refinance that shed and put it over a longer term because the asset is going to be there. So that's a big benefit, and it'll free up and create cash for the farm to operate. If you are going to build a shed, that is not allowed. So anything that is going to be built or has been even started in 2017, you're not allowed to fund that. So you can only retrospectively fund.
So what are the purposes? Is this just to clear up a bit of cash flow for farmers?
Well, it really is. Farmers who would have used cash flow, who were in a good position in 2015, 2016, they had cash in place. They didn't maybe see what was going to come down the line in 2016, as we saw last year, very tough. So then the cash ran out. This is a way of retrofinancing that and freeing up some cash.
So, but is this not a case of you're borrowing money to spend money? Is this not a case of you have one credit card that's built up a lot of debt, you get a second credit card to clear that debt, you ultimately have to pay it back?
No, you cannot refinance credit or facilities that you already have in place. It's not for refinancing. It's particularly for where there is a cash flow problem on the farm, where cash was used in the past to fund stock purchases, to fund fertiliser purchases, to fund a tractor that was being bought out of cash, or to build a shed or develop a parlour. One of the more interesting facts or features of it is that if you're a dairy farmer and you've expanded your herd, as many dairy farmers would have over the last number of years, and then coming out of 2016, cash flow has been under pressure. What you are allowed to do, if you've built up your herd through replacements, you are allowed to retrofund those. So, and that can typically be between 700 and 1,000 euros per animal. So that could amount into a fairly substantial number. So that they can be funded over a number of years, if possible.
So before we go into kind of the main questions, and you have been inundated with questions from farmers out there looking to apply, are there going to be? Is this money going to run out? There's three pillar banks: AIB, Bank of Ireland, and Ulster, who are financing this, and they each have a different pot of money. Is the money going to run out essentially?
Look, it's a substantial fund. 150 million is a lot of money, and this is money now that's being forwarded onto farms. There is a need for it, and speaking with the banks, what the banks are seeing is that there has been a lot of pent-up demand, because this is something that was announced last October, November in the budget. It's only after being opened on the 1st of February, so we're 2 weeks into it. What the banks are telling me is that there has been a huge surge in applications. They envisage that the fund will be used up. I would imagine that the fund will be used up quite fast, because now is the time the farmers need to do it. So I think initially we're going to see in the next, say, 2, 3, 4 weeks, I think we'll see a lot of it used up, and then it might be tailored off. But I think if anyone is in a position that they would or feel they need some cash flow piece, that they apply now and they get in now, because if it's used up, it's used up. But that doesn't mean there won't be another fund either.
So, and just going through, as I said, you put out a call for questions to farmers recently, and they have been coming in naturally as well. Some of the FAQs, the frequently asked questions, is there a penalty if I repay the loan earlier than the initial term was agreed?
Yeah, so normally in a fixed term loan, fixed interest rate loan, if you break the terms of that, there is a penalty, but not in this case.
And what other type of questions are you coming in? The interest rate is fixed at 2.95%. Is there an age limit for older farmers?
No age limit. It's available to everyone. A typical question is, I've bought a tractor or I've bought a piece of machinery for 20,000 last year. I didn't use finance. I used my cash. Am I allowed to refinance that now? And the answer is yes. And you can put that up to 3-4 years, depending on and up to a maximum of 6 years, depending on your circumstances. So that really frees up that cash flow piece. Right?
And this is one question in from a suckler farmer in County Leitrim. Says, I have a number of bills due in the next few months, including feed, fertiliser and diesel.
Yeah, they're all allowed. Anything that is going to be used to fund the farm and that needs to be paid in the coming months, they can be funded through this scheme.
And just give us a breakdown then of the banks, how much each of the three banks has to play with regard to its own level of funding, and the pot of money of the split into the three ways, €150 million.
Yeah, so AIB and Bank of Ireland have about 60 and 65 million each, and then Ulster Bank has another 25 million. So the three banks, they're the only three banks that are operating this scheme. I suppose the advice would be that to go talk to your bank first. What you will need when you go into your bank is a full set of up-to-date accounts, and you may need more than 1 year depending on the circumstance and the size of the loan that they're asking for.
This is no different than looking for a loan from the credit union or the bank as it is. You need to have do you need to have a business plan in place? Do you need what all do you need?
No, you don't. The big difference is you don't need security. It is going to be a quick process. Typically, I'm told that 15 days is the turnaround time from the date of application to the date of the funds being available to you in your account, it is a much simpler process than applying for any other types of loan because of that security piece is not needed. But you do need your up-to-date accounts. You don't need a business plan, but you will need to be able to show if you're funding a shed that has been built or a tractor that has been bought. You'll be able to show invoices to show where the costs were incurred because you're retrospectively trying to finance that.
So, and finally we finish on this because it's a question that comes up and has come up quite regularly, is if you have old existing merchant credit, for example, is that something that this loan will cater for, that you can clear those debts and get back on the road? Because a lot of tillage farmers, I presume, are ones who were stung by that over bad prices the last 3 or 4 years.
Exactly, last 3 years there's been a kind of an increasing in the merchant credit piece, particularly on tillage farms. Yeah, so just to take an example, if you have 50,000 of a bill with the merchant and 20,000 of that is relating to 2 years ago, that is absolute kind of typically what this has been designed for, that you can fund that 20,000 over 3 or 4 years to try get out of that situation. It would be at a lower cost of interest than what the merchant might typically charge you, so you can get that covered off at a fixed rate. You can also go on an interest-only piece for a couple of years at the start of the loan, and then you can work away at the ordinary part of the merchant credit as you go forward.
Oh, and very comprehensive. And I think you had in excess of 100 questions in from farmers over recent weeks. Look at this, but you answered the most frequently asked ones, I suppose, in this week's Farmers Journal and on farmersjournal.ie.
The Irish Farmers Journal podcast, online at farmersjournal.ie, on the Irish Farmers Journal app, and on iTunes every Thursday.
Last month, the Irish Farmers Journal exclusively broke the news that the Department of Agriculture's 6 regional veterinary labs are under review. Since then, farmers have been protesting against the possible closure of labs in different parts of the country. This week, both the ICMSA and the ICSA held a protest at the lab in Limerick, and our news correspondent, Thomas Hubert, was there to hear farmers' concerns.
Hello, this is Thomas Hubert, news correspondent with the Irish Farmers Journal. I'm in Meelick, County Clare, just outside Limerick City at the Regional Veterinary Lab for the Department of Agriculture. And there is a protest here by the ICMSA and ICSA because this lab may close in the future. Some of the farmers here protesting are with me. Can you introduce yourself and tell us why you're protesting today?
I'm Gerald Quinn, National Dairy Chairman of the ICMSA, and we're here protesting basically because we want the lab kept open, because if they move the lab anywhere else, it would be too far away from most farmers, and farmers just wouldn't bother going with a fetus, and they'd decide to just end off the knackery, and disease could go unnoticed or unchecked, and we could have a major problem down the road if disease isn't kept under control and under wraps. So that was the only thing that would worry us that way.
For example, from your farm, how long does it take to get here, and how long would it take to get to the next lab if this one was to close?
Well, for me to take a good 3/4 an hour, and it would close this one. Well, they're talking about building in Macroom, which probably be I'd be kind of on the Cork-Limerick border, which probably wouldn't make that much of a difference to be probably an hour and a quarter to Macroom. But for people just into the county or in North Kerry or in parts of Clare, they had to head for that loan, or else go to Macroom, which would be at least a 2.5 hour drive. And I don't think farmers have the time to do anything like that at the moment. They're just too busy, and they just wouldn't bother going. They just ring the neck and tell them take the calf or the cow or whatever the case may be away, and we feel there would be a major disaster because disease could go unnoticed for weeks, and then until suddenly someone decides to send the fetus to a lab next and suddenly realise they have a major problem. It could be too late then, like.
Eddie Punch, General Secretary of the ICSA, is also taking part in the protest. Eddie, why are you here today at the veterinary lab in Limerick?
This regional veterinary lab is a huge resource for farmers of Clare, Limerick and the whole Midwest region. It's vitally important for animal welfare, for helping farmers to find out what is the cause of mortality in their livestock. This lab works very well with private veterinary practitioners so that farmers can get on top of a disease outbreak, an infectious scenario, as quickly as possible. And that results in farmers doing better in looking after their livestock and maybe reducing mortality on farm. So it's a hugely important resource. We met department officials here this morning who haven't denied that one of the plans is to centralise all of this in Backweston in County Kildare. That's a crazy proposal. It makes no sense, even in our view, in terms of cost efficiencies in the department, but it certainly makes absolutely no sense whatsoever from the point of view of good farming practice in the Munster region in terms of good animal welfare and disease control. So this is a crazy proposal, penny pinching, that will do nothing for farming and will save probably nothing for the department either.
There was maybe another option that was to have more vans on the road and come to the farms and help around the country. Would that be an option from the farmer's point of view?
Well, I can't see how that's going to save money for the department. Here we have a scenario where a lot of farmers bring the dead animals in here themselves. That's no cost to the department. We know that when state agencies get involved in long distance transport, the likelihood is that the costs will be way more by having one centralised laboratory rather than a number of regional labs. And look, if they can provide a commitment that farmers will have a better service than they have now, we're open to discussions on it. But as far as we're seeing, closing down these regional laboratories is a retrograde step.
Okay, thanks, Eddie.
We hope that you're enjoying this Irish Farmers Journal podcast. Find out more at farmersjournal.ie.
Agriculture and fishing employs 8% of the workforce, but has almost 50% of the workplace fatalities. This stark statistic was presented by Agriculture Minister Michael Creed at a farm safety event organised by Cork County Council last week. Tommy Miles for the Farmers Journal was at the event, and he spoke to both Minister Creed and farm safety campaigner Connie O'Driscoll about the challenge of making farmers more safety aware.
Well, I mean, to be honest with you, we're scratching our heads wondering how do we address this. It's a real blight on the landscape. The number of fatalities last year, over 20. If you add in the fishery side, more again. I think there were 3 fatalities in the fishery side. And I do think we need to think outside the box. The HSA can do so much. But one of the points which I made over at Skullbreed in Ballydehob was to the kids, and they had a safety officer in 3rd and 4th class. I said, really, every one of you, when you go home, needs to be a safety officer. And not to get into the tractor with your dad. Ask him when did he have the tractor service starts, are the brakes working. We need to think outside the box. And I think kids, and I think farmers, spouses and neighbours is a very important thing. Now, obviously, we need to look at other things that we can do from a statutory point of view. And some of them might be uncomfortable things. They might not be things that farm organisations will be entirely happy with. But look, I've stood in too many churchyards and graveyards at accidents like this, and I don't want to be there anymore.
Tommy Morris from the Farmers Journal speaking to Connie O'Driscoll of Mizzen Rovers GA Club.
Yeah, basically back in 2010 I was in a small rural GA club. We saw the need to have more input into the lives of our players, and we often saw them just for maybe 4 or 5 months of the year, and then didn't see them again until the following year when we started training again. We felt to us they were VIPs, they were very important players, and we needed to protect every one of them, so we started an initiative within the club called Care for Our Players, which basically was 3 components: road safety, health and well-being, and jobs and enterprise. Try to do some little initiative or some little action in each one of those components over the next few years, and we did. As in road safety, we took the kids to driving centre, put up a lot of signage around the dressing rooms in the community sports centre. In the health and well-being, we were involved in the Amber Flag programme. Jobs and enterprise, again, a lot of signage to encourage local enterprise and local jobs. in 2014, I suppose we broadened out our road safety to include farm safety because it was such a topical issue at the time for all the wrong reasons. And then we tried to reflect some of the stuff we did in the road safety, which was quite successful, as in take some of the kids on safe driving courses for tractors. Again, a lot of signage with regard to farm safety. Following that, we noticed that there was a subcommittee being set up in the Oireachtas with regard to farm safety, and we made a submission to that. I think the only GA club in Ireland to make a submission to that, and subsequently we were invited to their public consultation process in Shannon, where they asked us to impart our ideas, and we were delighted afterwards when Senator Martin Conway released his report and included 2 of our suggestions on that. And that gave us a good profile, but more importantly on the day we realised, if we didn't know it before, that farm safety, the key to it was to start with young people. We interacted that day with a lot of other organisations, a lot of other individuals, and from speaking with them we realised, we need to start with the young people, let them be the ambassadors for farm safety. So we thought then after that in 2016, why not go and start in our own area a little pilot scheme by going to visit schools, and that we did. We went into 10 local schools, primary schools, spoke to, in some cases, all of the kids, in more cases maybe 2nd, 3rd, 4th class, and when leave a package behind with a lot of stuff in it, DVDs, books, board games, little colouring competitions, but all containing the same thing, subtle messages about farm safety, which might resonate with the kids in a friendly manner. We also always said, and always prefaced everything we said by saying, a farm is a lovely place to grow up on, a great place to be reared. From our own experience, we found it idyllic. We have some great memories from when we were young, and growing up on a farm. So we never want that message to be lost, because farms have got bad press over the last number of years. Sometimes justified, but it's still a lovely place to be reared. Rural living, idyllic. But you have to be aware of the dangers, and if you're aware of the dangers, there is no reason why we can't all go forward in a safe and healthy manner. Our little initiative is from a GA club. We would love if it could be reflected in every GA club in Ireland, because there's a GA club in every parish, sometimes a couple of GA clubs, that they would roll it out in the schools, obviously in conjunction with others. But that the message would be taken to the schools, and that, if that initiative, as we always say, if it saves one life, if it prevents one serious injury, if it prevents one teardrop, then our aim has been achieved.
The Irish Farmers Journal Weekly Podcast.
With an integrated business across Ireland and the UK, timber products manufacturer GLAS is facing a tough Brexit challenge. Its chief executive, Brian Murphy, spoke to the Irish Farmers Journal news correspondent Thomas Hubert at an all-Ireland Brexit conference last week.
Hello, this is Thomas Hubert, news correspondent with the Irish Farmers Journal. I'm here with Brian Murphy of GLAS, a wood pellet processor in Northern Ireland. Brian, could you explain to us how important is it for you to be able to move freely between the Republic, Northern Ireland and Britain for your business?
Yeah, well, GLAS is one of the largest timber processing businesses on these islands. Not the biggest, but very significant. And we have 2 large plants, one in Enniskillen and one in the north of Scotland in Invergordon. On those plants, we manufacture both sawn timber, renewable electricity, and wood pellets. And indeed, in Britain and Ireland, we're the largest manufacturer of wood pellets. Here in Ireland, we take timber from both the Republic of Ireland and the north of Ireland, and indeed from the very west coast of Scotland, and process it primarily in our Enniskillen sawmill to make sawn timber. But there's a co-product that goes with sawn timber, sawdust, wood chips and bark, and we burn some of that, which makes electricity. We use the waste heat from the electricity process to dry more sawmill co-products, sawdust and wood chips, which we make into wood pellets. And those wood pellets are a renewable fuel, which in turn displace oil and other imports to these islands.
And they're sold in Ireland, in the UK and further afield?
Primarily in Britain and Ireland at this stage. We began with a wood pellet plant in Northern Ireland and sold all of the output of that on this island. Subsequent to that, we got involved in the far north of Scotland with a larger electricity plant and again a bigger wood pellet plant.
What does the prospect of Brexit and a potential border mean for you and your business?
Like all businesses on the island of Ireland, it's very important that we can move freely between north and south. And our biggest concern with Brexit is that we are not inhibited in being able to work efficiently. We employ people and maintain jobs in the rural environment. And that all begins, I guess, around the forest. The forests of Ireland don't care which side of the border they grow on. And we're trying to take those trees, which in turn are providing income to farmers, and add commercial value, or provide commercial value to that, which makes the whole economic chain work. And we'll have a very competitive market to fight in Great Britain as we go forward. Because Britain in its own right is one of the largest importers of timber in the world. In Europe, it's the largest single importer, and it's right there on our doorstep. So we're trying all the time to compete with other providers into that market. We don't need extra costs and extra inhibitions in our way of doing that.
What are the practicalities that would cause problems for you? Is it the tariffs? Is it the time wasted at the border? Is it your staff moving to go to work every day from one jurisdiction to the next?
Well, you've raised some of the issues. I think tariffs are unlikely to be a major problem for us because timber has largely traded freely around the world without tariffs, inside and outside the European Union. However, you refer to people crossing the border in time. You also talk about trucks crossing borders. If approved routes were very restrictive, that would incur extra distance and extra cost, and that would be a worry. If there is time, because we have to think of always of safety of drivers, if there's time where drivers are held up at border checkpoints, that in turn affects the efficiency with which we can process the output of Ireland's forests.
On the other hand, what advantages do you have that would help you deal with this Brexit situation, this location at the border between the UK and Ireland going forward? What does it bring to you that would be a competitive advantage and still a good way of doing business?
Well, first of all, we have advantages because we have the trees that grow close to us, and that's an increasing supply. Our farming brethren are keen to increase what they're supplying, and it's providing another access to the rural income of the farmer. We have a good workforce, which is not just Irish and British, but we have a good and stable workforce that gives us a strong consistency in terms of the quality of what we're able to produce, because we have people who don't tend to move from job to job. They, in turn, allow us to invest in training and invest in their education. That gives us a competitive advantage. We also are competing in terms of in terms of Britain and Ireland with sawmills far up in Scotland. Much of the market, of course, is in England, and we're not that much further away from England than our friends in Scotland.
We're at one of the numerous successive meetings that are taking place on Brexit with the authorities, with the industry. What do you see happening, or what would you like to see happening from the authorities in Ireland and the UK that could help going forward with this situation?
I think the first thing is probably quite a macro issue. Government needs to recognise the value of the forest industry to our rural economies and the value that we bring to the farming community in giving them that alternative stream of income that I referred to earlier. The second thing then is they must facilitate the ease of movement and uninhibited movement of product throughout these islands.
Okay, Brian, thank you very much.
Okay, thanks, Thomas.
The Irish Farmers Journal podcast, online at farmersjournal.ie, on the Irish Farmers Journal app and on iTunes every Thursday. Brought to you by Ornua, the home of Irish dairy.
Finally, did you know that 45% of Irish health insurance policies are renewed between the months of January and March each year? With this in mind, Irish Country Living journalist Mary Phelan spoke to consumer editor Ciara Leahy about the options for doubling your health insurance cover while still saving some money.
My name is Mary Phelan and I'm here with consumer editor Ciara Leahy, who has an article this week on health insurance. It's all about doubling your cover but saving money. This could be very relevant to many readers, Ciara, as you point out that between January and March each year, nearly 45% of Irish health insurance policies are renewed. So please tell us more about this.
Hi Mary, yeah, that's correct. So in the first 3 months of the year, just under 1 million people will actually renew their health insurance. So I suppose many readers now may be envisaging themselves over the next few weeks wading through policies in an attempt to find the best deal. Now, look, I've covered health insurance many times as a consumer editor in Country Living, and I'm not going to lie to you, it is a minefield. There's hundreds of policies on the market, and Mary, to be honest, the easy option for many is simply to renew your existing policy. You know where you stand, take the money out of my account, but actually doing so could be costing you a significant amount more, and by doing just even a bit of research and picking up the phone, you could potentially double your health insurance cover and save money in the process.
Now, that sounds to me like a bit of a sensationalist newspaper headline, Ciara.
Look, the proof is actually in the numbers, Mary. I worked with Dermot Good from Total Health Cover on this, who is nothing short of a walking encyclopedia of health care policies. And, you know, we went through different policies just to show what can be done. So let's look at entry level plans, the cheapest plans that you can get, which 15% of Irish health insurance customers are on. Okay, so you've got plans such as the VHI One Plan Access, which many actually would know as the old VHI Plan A. That's currently costing consumers €939 per adult, and it only covers stays in public hospitals. However, you can actually stick with the same provider and opt for another one of VHI's policies called the One Plan 250. That's €889, a saving of €50. But this plan not only covers the aforementioned cover in your public hospital, it also covers it will also cover you if you have to go into a private hospital. And it's not just VHI that have these type of plans. If you're an Irish Life customer and you're on the We Plan Level 1, you're paying $1,168. Switch to the Select Plus plan and you're going to save $249. And again, you're going from public cover in public hospitals to cover in public and private. But probably the biggest saving is if you're a Leia customer. If you're on the Essential plan, the Leia Essential plan, you're paying €1,277 per adult, right? If you go to the Flex 250 Explore, you're actually saving €271 and again doubling your cover. And if you're on a family plan and you switch from them, you're actually going to go from €3,436 to €2,502. That's a saving of €934. Now, that's not just going to get you access to public and private hospitals, it's probably also going to get you a family holiday as well.
Wow, Ciara, that is really impressive. But explain this to me. Why aren't people a little bit more aware of this? I mean, are they being tricked by health insurance providers, or what's the story there?
I wouldn't say they're being tricked. I suppose what consumers don't realise is that these older plans that I've just mentioned, the more expensive plans, they've been overtaken by newer plans, which are not only cheaper but are more comprehensive. And what's happened is, as they've been auto-renewing those very old plans year after year, they've been hit with those incremental increases every single time that the increments have been announced. So really... And health insurance companies have brought in these more comprehensive and often cheaper plans to entice more people to the company. Look, the thing is, Mary, the health insurance company is not going to ring you up and go, "Hey, Mary, we know you're on this plan. There's a better plan for you." They're quite happy for you to simply renew. The onus is on the consumer to be proactive in finding the best deals.
Okay, and when you actually do go about making the call, you know, to make these great savings, you have some advice that people should follow, Ciara.
Look, the other thing is you have to be careful what way you're going to phrase it. If you ring up, for example, and say, "Look, I can't afford my current policy. What can I get for €1,000? They are going to present to you what you can get for €1,000. Instead, ask, "Here is the plan I have. What is the closest equivalent at a cheaper price?" And also something like, is there any new plans that give better cover at a lower price? All these calls are being recorded, and you know, when you ask the question like that, the health insurance companies are obliged to present you with the correct information. And if afterwards you realise that there's something that they didn't make you aware of, if they didn't give you proper advice, you will have the means to rectify the situation.
Wow, Ciara, this is really impressive and really helpful. Are there any other tips or questions that people should consider when they're making that phone call?
Well, look, if you are going to switch your cover, I mean, the thing is, people are afraid of switching because, as I said earlier, they know where they stand. They know what they're covered for. So if you are going to make the switch, just make sure that those things important to you with your health insurance policy are still going to be covered. So look at how it compares to your existing cover. Ask, what are you losing if you switch? What are you gaining? It's especially important if you've got a treatment pending or you're due to have some repeat treatment or tests. You know, make sure this is going to be covered. Check out the excesses that you might now have to pay, and also check out if there's any upgrade rules. For example, if you're going up to a higher policy, the benefits may take a while to kick in, so ask about that, and other stuff like MRIs and CT scans, are they covered? What kind of emergency cover while you're abroad? Because that could be quite important. I mean, unfortunately, you know, no one knows when they're going to get something like cancer. You could be perfectly healthy and, you know, unfortunately get a diagnosis in the next 12 months. And you need to make sure that that's covered. If it's cardiac covered, orthopedics, all those things that, you know, can just happen to people. And also make sure that your hospital access and coverage is the same as your previous plan, or at least fully matches your requirements. And if there's any particular consultant that you're seeing, make sure they're covered as well. I mean, really think about what you use your health insurance for and see how it compares.
Okay, and Ciara, finally, why should you avoid renewing online?
Mary, I suppose what we've just covered there, there's a myriad of inquiries that you should make when you're switching your policy, and it can be confusing, and you need to ask questions. But when you buy online, you're taking on full responsibility. You're ticking that box saying that you understand everything that is being presented. That means you have no comeback. So it's really important to actually pick up the phone and ask those questions so you can make the most amount of savings.
Okay, Ciara, fantastic advice there. And for people who didn't catch it all in what Ciara said, it's all in this week's Country Living in an article in the consumer section. Thanks a million.
Thank you.
The Irish Farmers Journal podcast, online at farmersjournal.ie, on the Irish Farmers Journal app and on iTunes every Thursday. Brought to you by Ornua, the home of Irish dairy.